Good evening, everybody.
Evening.
Welcome. Bishop, would you lead us, please?
Sure, Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for once again being able to serve this great city. Bless this meeting and bless all the constituents in this city. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Seated. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dietz.
Here.
Bolden.
Here.
McCleary.
Here.
Sansing.
Here.
Ray.
Here.
Mashburn.
Here.
Moss.
Here.
Twitty. Kinman. Raines.
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
All are present, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. Glad to see all of you all here this evening. Please bear with us tonight. We discovered just a while ago that the air conditioner has decided to not cooperate this evening. So it's a little warmer in here than normal, but we will get through this and we will try to talk fast and get everybody on their way. So, but anyway, we will go ahead and get started. Before you, you've got your the minutes from the June 8th meeting. Please be familiarizing yourself with that for the next one. And at this time, entertain a motion to accept the meetings of the May 18th meeting. Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Those are adopted. Entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented in your packets.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No, take that. All right. At this point, we will look at ordinance 1737, have a public hearing on that. So entertain a motion to place ordinance 1737 on first reading.
So moved.
Motion, second. We get a roll call that one, don't we?
Yes, sir.
So roll call, please.
Councilmember Dietz.
Aye.
Bolden.
Aye.
McCleary. Sansing. Ray. Mashburn.
Aye.
Moss.
Aye.
Twitty.
Aye.
Kinman. Raines.
No. Ordinance 1737, an ordinance amending Jacksonville Municipal Code 801078.
All right, it is now 6:02. We will enter into a time of public hearing for this. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on behalf, for or against, make their opinions known on this ordinance 1737? Okay, still 6:02. We will close off the public hearing on that and entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1737 and place
I'm
on.
sorry, was that for council as well to speak on this?
No, that was for the public.
Okay, so when is the council going to have discussion after?
After the first reading.
Yeah,
Okay,
We
So-
need Steph to read. We have a motion and second for her to read.
that's what we're about to do. Or she just read.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
right.
So now,
You were
no,
fast.
so now, so yes, do you have a question?
Yeah, I know that it says that you sponsored it, Mr. Mayor, but from my understanding, as far as the committee, we've not formally accepted this. There was a lot of feedback and
Yeah.
response
And
going
actually-
back and forth. Let me finish.
Oh, so I was gonna say that's not, that's a mistake. I did not sponsor this. This was coming from another council member. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so that's not what is written, and I would suggest that we amend what is written if that's not the case. But as far as the committee goes, my last correspondence on this subject was April 5th, and that was from Stephanie saying that we would need to have an additional, schedule an additional subcommittee meeting for the things that we talked about. There was a lot of crosstalk and misunderstanding, or not a clear understanding of what was discussed at that last meeting. And so this is not formally accepted from the subcommittee.
So at the last meeting, sorry, if I may.
No, you're fine.
The last meeting, there were a couple of items that were discussed that needed to be clarified. And so I reached out to each council member individually, so as not to violate FOIA, and asked for their input. And then I took some of your ideas that you had and passed those along and suggested we have another meeting because it would be easier to have a meeting rather than me go back and forth multiple times. And the consensus from the other council members that I spoke with was to put it on the agenda as is. The majority of the subcommittee wanted it the way it's presented now.
Okay, so even though there are large holes when it comes to the definition, we're reading it tonight.
That was my understanding, and if I misunderstood the council members who are on the subcommittee, feel
I'd like
free
to
to
say
correct me.
something.
Sure.
The last meeting that we had, that I remember, everybody was in agreement to put it on the agenda. I specifically asked each member of the committee that was there, did anybody have anything they wanted to add, anything taken away? Everything was fine. There was no questions at that last meeting. So we moved forward. When you ask about the community garden and stuff, that is not what was discussed in our meetings. That was something totally different than what we were going for here. I could call Ryan up if he would like to come up and say anything about this. It's basically just a clean house is all it was. We didn't have anything on there on the flower beds. I mean, you can't just throw a package of seeds out and call it a flower bed, and that's what we were trying to accomplish here.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
we did most definitely talk about community gardens at that subcommittee because of the fact that this ordinance would potentially come into conflict with them. Second of all, it was mentioned that we need more defined as far as other than trees and shrubs, as it is stated in the current ordinance. There are a lot of different subcategories when it comes to flora, and putting a blanket generic nothing but trees and shrubs is not how to fix this problem that we are facing. I'm not saying that it's not a problem. What I'm saying is that we are making blanket statements that are literally missing things that everyone has in their yard, from vines to grasses and everything else. But again, for us to be restricting everything that is not a tree or a shrub to be a minimum of 8 inches is not fair to our citizens.
Who of the council members who served on the subcommittee for this?
I was on it.
I'm just asking for my knowledge. I mean,
I was, Terry.
Yeah, so it was
Mike.
myself, Dietz, and Twitty, from my understanding.
the three of y'all?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Ryan participated.
Yes. So,
Right, Ryan participated as well as Jim Moore.
the general part about the weeds and trees and shrubs, that is taken directly from the International Property Maintenance Code. That is a code that is standardized across the United States that almost every code enforcement unit uses, in several other countries outside the United States. So that's something that is directly taken, the wording from that is taken directly from that. It's basically a carbon copy of that ordinance. The addition of the flower beds and things like that, that's an issue because we have people out there trying to grow gardens and stuff out there by the road and things like that. So that stuff was just kind of made to kind of get some guidelines and kind of keep things clean and tidy. So, but the majority of the ordinance is based specifically off of the International Property Maintenance Code.
To piggyback off of what Lieutenant Wright was saying, the International Property Maintenance Code was updated in 2021, I think.
Yes,
and
we're on the
their
2021 edition. So.
Their definitions changed slightly from what we had previously had, so that's what prompted this initial change. And then we kind of got, as Ryan mentioned, into the definition of flower bed and gardens. But you are correct. The trees and shrubs, the 8 inches, that came directly from International Property Maintenance Code. Correct.
Yes, that's standardized through most of them. North Little Rock uses it, Cabot uses it. It's standardized through, at least Arkansas, I know, but as far as across the country, it's all used throughout the United States.
So what's different on this one that used to be?
We had updated, I believe we had updated the way that it had defined exactly your commercial zones, your
And the
industrial
boarding of it.
zones, as far as how we did that. And I believe the definition of weeds got expanded a little bit more to be more clarifying of what we were trying to establish, because before this the definition of weeds and vegetation was very, very, very vague. So
So what we're using now is just a little bit different from this right here?
it's an updated version, yes.
It's updated.
This is the most updated version of the International Property Maintenance Code.
Basically, if you want to have a flower garden, it needs to have a border around it. I have a house that I'm getting several complaints from right now that's in Foxwood. And the flower beds, there is a border where the flower beds were, but now we've got, I don't want to call them weeds because I don't know what these plants are, but they're as tall as the house practically. It's up to the roof line, and it's not inside of the flower beds. And so we were trying to clean this up, make it where if you're going to have flower beds, we're not telling you what to put in your flower beds basically, but you have to have some kind of a border around it. It can't just be a bunch of weeds up against a house and that would be called a flower bed. So as far as the community gardens, we did talk on that in the past. And so I had told Stephanie if we wanted to do another meeting on that, that would be separate than what this, that I had started on this was totally different than what that was. So,
Does this change the community gardens in?
So we've actually, the last time we had a community garden in the city of Jacksonville was the Sunnyside Community Garden. That is since, driving past it, it's not used for that right now. I believe the point was eventually to still include something like that if the community did want to do it, but I believe something possibly got mentioned about maybe the planning commission or something like that, approaching them about that. So if there needs to be a committee meeting on that, that might be something we can look at. But as far as that goes, that's the only community garden that we have had, and it hasn't been active for several years.
So would
So-
this restrict them from even having the
No.
right to do that?
No,
no,
You can still do it?
still do it.
I just wanna make
this
sure
has nothing to do with that.
stop people from.
Oh, no, absolutely
No,
not. So.
not at all.
Grow your collards.
Not at all.
Green.
Again, I think the discussion that I had with two other council members was if a community garden became an issue in the future, we don't currently have any, but if someone wanted that in the future, we could address those concerns.
Yes.
Maybe define that and add some parameters around that so people would know
Right.
what to expect.
Right.
So, Mr. Mayor, going back to what I was saying, we did change the definition of weeds, and it is anything other than trees or shrubs, which is not in, that's not what was previously done or in the international code. It was our goal and objective to clearly define what is a weed and what is a garden. And for us to have the current definition that we have, it is not inclusive at all. One of the other things that was directly spoken on in our subcommittee meetings and referred back to in my email correspondence with Stephanie was the mailbox gardens, because at this current juncture, the way that this ordinance is written, it does not include a variance whatsoever for anybody that wants to put decoration, flowers and decorate their mailbox. And that's something that we have a lot of citizens that already do as of current, let alone anybody that would potentially want to do it in the future. And so, again, like, we did not, yes, we did say that once we got everything squared away after that meeting, that we would bring this to the council. However, unfortunately, there was a lot of crosstalk and a lot of points where the people that needed to be in that meeting that were unable to be in that meeting were not able to hear everything that was clearly spoken on.
Who was supposed to be in the meeting that wasn't in the meeting though?
I wasn't there, but
You
I got
wasn't
the
there.
audio from Susan.
Right, you had the audio.
Right.
Right, and like I said, there was, from her emails, she said that there was crosstalk and that she couldn't hear certain points of that meeting and was getting clarity. That, like,
Yeah, I sent this ordinance as it is presented in front of all of you to each of the council members, just to ensure that I heard everything correctly, that this is what you guys wanted to present to council. The feedback that I got, and I did share your feedback with the other council members to see if they wanted to elaborate or to entertain some of your points, which I think were valid. But it seems like that may take extra meetings, and in order to get this on the agenda for code enforcement in time for grass season, it seemed kind of imperative to get this done first and then revisit community gardens if necessary.
And that was my whole thought also, to go ahead and move forward with this, and then go back as the community gardens come forward to us. If there's one that we could discuss it with code and see what, Ron and the code officers, feel like we
So
need
for
to do.
clarification, it wasn't,
Mr. Mayor, I call for a question on the motion to pass the orders on first reading.
Point of order.
What's the point?
What's the,
We had several council members trying to speak to the chair in that moment, and Councilmember Ray spoke over McCleary.
all right. Well, hold on one second. Going to Councilmember Ray's calling for the question. There actually, at this point in time, there is no question to call because we have not gone to entertaining a motion to place it on, or to approve the ordinance on the first reading and move to second yet. So I will uphold what you said there because we haven't gotten there yet. We're close, but we're not there. Councilmember Cleary, what were you saying?
We amend it as needed in the future.
an ordinance can always be amended. That's essentially what we're doing tonight, was amending a previous ordinance.
We just trying to get all right.
Right.
Okay,
Sure, I'm clear.
Councilmember Bolden.
Clear point. We need to make a decision tonight dealing with the properties because grass is growing and we've got things that need to be done. We can always come back and talk about the other things that's necessary, dealing with fruits, vegetables, collard green, mustard green, turnips, cabbage, or whatever a person wants to plant. But right now, we need to deal with the community, with the whole city, because they're working their hinds off cutting yards. So we need to have an ordinance that covers our officers.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Lieutenant Wright. Was there any inch variance when it comes to this amendment?
No, the inch variance is still 8 inches and 18.
So we're still cutting anything over 8 inches that is grass?
Yes, any vacant properties that are over 8 inches, yes. we're
Thank
cutting.
you. This is not a decision that we need to make today. I'm asking for the council to respect the subcommittee and all of the members of the subcommittee that are trying to represent the citizens here and recognize that, again, I did make valid points. We have tons of people that already have mailbox flower beds and already have a lot of things that this current amendment would restrict.
Go ahead.
Help me out, attorney. You did contact the subcommittee and council members, is that correct?
I did, and Rose, it wasn't anything personal, it was just the majority of the subcommittee members wanted this to go the way.
So everyone's been contacted and everybody has voiced. Basically, now we need to vote on what people said on the phone, correct? Or text, email, whatever.
Yes.
Okay. So the subcommittee that we're talking about was approached and the subcommittee said, put it on the agenda.
No, so
Majority
to
of-
read word for word from this email, Stephanie said that I've asked Councilmember Twitty to schedule another subcommittee meeting. It seems it would be more efficient to have everyone together in a public meeting to discuss these additions, in parentheses, as opposed to sending out separate emails going back and forth to council members in order to stay within FOIA boundaries, in parentheses. So it was clearly stated that we would be scheduling another subcommittee meeting in this email correspondence, and you are telling me that instead we are presenting this today, even with all of the holes in it.
So to clarify, I said I would ask Councilmember Twitty to schedule another meeting. When I approached her with that, she said she was good with it as is. So that prompted me
Because
to
I
talk to my
excuse me
piece.
for interrupting, but I specifically asked at the last meeting, did anybody have anything else that they wanted to add? Was everybody good with it? Everybody was fine with it, including you. Everybody was fine. I asked anybody, did they have any more questions? Did they want to add or take away? And everything was fine. I know that we have had this on the back burner for months and months and months. The grass is still continually to grow. Our code officers are working day and night. It seems like we can't get ahead of the weeds. So I think it's imperative that we move forward. And that's what I said, if you want to have a committee meeting on the community gardens and address some of this other stuff, that's fine. But as far as the weeds, we need to go forward with it.
So
Right.
as it was said, I did agree with all of the things that I had stated and that needed to be amended. And that is not in this packet tonight, and that is not what we're voting on.
From the audio, when I went back to listen to the meeting, it sounded like the only thing up in the air was the community garden definition. And so I reached out to all three of you individually to ask for a definition, some feedback on what you wanted that to include or would look like. And that's when you brought up the mailbox, flower beds, and some other issues. So,
Which was spoken on the,
yeah, and I apologize for
Meeting before
not
that.
hearing that portion.
it's fine, but obviously we are not in a clear communication, we are not on a clear accord, and so having that additional meeting is important.
Councilmember Raines has vocalized her objection to this. Is there any other comments, questions, concerns? If that being the case, then to move forward or to not move forward, would entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1737
So moved.
on first reading and suspend the rules in place on second reading.
Second.
We have motion and a second. Roll call.
Councilmember Deets.
Aye.
Bolden.
Aye.
McCleary. Sansing. Rain. Mashburn.
No.
Moss.
Aye.
Twitty.
Aye.
Kinman.
I'm so confused. I'm gonna say no.
Rains.
No,
Passes.
Okay. Then entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1737 on second reading and suspend the rules in place on third and final reading. Motion second, roll call.
Councilmember Deets. Bolden.
Aye.
McCleary. Sansing. Ray. Mashburn.
No.
Moss.
Aye.
Twitty.
Aye.
Kinman.
No.
Rains.
no,
Passes with 7.
Then entertain a motion to approve and adopt ordinance 1737 on this date.
So moved. Second.
Motion and second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Deets. Bolden.
Aye.
McCleary. Sansing. Ray.
Aye.
Mashburn.
No.
Moss.
Aye.
Twitty.
Aye.
Kinman. Rains.
no,
Do we need emergency clause on that? Okay, so then ordinance 1737 is approved and adopted as of today's date. Moving on to ordinance 1738, entertain a motion to place 1738 on first reading.
So moved.
Motion second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Deets. Bolden.
Aye.
McCleary. Sansing. Ray.
Aye.
Mashburn.
Aye.
Moss.
Aye.
Twitty. Kinman. Rains.
I,
Ordinance number 1738, an ordinance establishing regulations covering vacant buildings, creating Jacksonville Municipal Code, Chapter 8.06.
At this point in time, it is now 6:23. We will go into public hearing. Is there anybody here to speak for or against ordinance 1738? Seeing that there is no one here to speak on that, at 6:24, we'll close off the public hearing and entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1738 on first reading and suspend the rules in place on second.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Deets. Bolden.
Aye.
McCleary. Sansing. Ray. Mashburn.
Aye.
Moss.
Aye.
Twitty. Kinman. Rains.
I,
Entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1738 on second reading and suspend the rules and place on third and final. Motion and a second.
I have a
Or,
question.
yes, ma'am.
So, it says that we are establishing, so there's no current ordinance on the books in regards to this?
Not for vacant building registration, no.
Okay. And so, just very clearly for our citizens and community, all we're asking is for residential and commercial vacant buildings be registered.
We're asking that they be registered and maintained, and that they have a local agent available to us so that we can have the property taken care of if anything gets out of hand or if there's any nuisances on the property.
So if I can expand on that, code
Yes, ma'am.
enforcement is having trouble locating some of the out-of-state owners whenever there's an issue, and then getting them into court is another issue. So this would just hopefully cut down on that if they have a local agent or someone who represents the property to be able to address those issues more efficiently, hopefully.
Any other comments, questions?
I don't have any other questions. I just thank you for trying to do something about this. I know individuals that don't even know their own landlords, so
Yes, ma'am.
this is definitely a problem, and hopefully this fixes it.
Entertain a motion to approve ordinance 1738 on second reading and suspend the rules in place on third and final. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Deets. Bolden. McCleary. Sansing. Ray. Mashburn.
Aye.
Moss. Twitty. Kinman. Raines.
Aye.
That passes. Entertain a motion to approve and adopt ordinance 1738 on this date. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Deets. Bolden. McCleary. Sansing. Ray. Mashburn.
Aye.
Moss. Twitty. Kinman. Raines.
Aye.
And I apologize, I didn't allude to an emergency clause in the heading of the ordinance, but there is one in section 3, so I'd ask that you vote on an emergency clause as well, so this will go in effect.
All right, so we'll entertain a motion to attach emergency clause to 1738. Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Deets. Bolden. McCleary. Sansing. Ray. Mashburn.
Aye.
Moss. Twitty. Kinman. Raines.
Aye.
Okay, 1738 emergency clause is adopted and put into place. Next is discussion on unsheltered in Jacksonville. Dr. Moss, Councilmember Moss, had asked about this, so if you want to kick off anything with any questions or comments, please.
Thank you,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair. My call for this to be discussed was, received a phone call and an email from a business leader that was discussing about the unsheltered affecting their business and in their space for business. So my question was, has the city looked at addressing this issue? And if so, what are some of our recourses for this unsheltered? Because there are a couple of things at hand. One, the unsheltered and making sure that, their basic needs are met or needs as possible. But two, the effect on the business community and the citizens of our community where people try to enter their businesses and they may be obstructed because of the unsheltered. So that was my question. I didn't know if that had been discussed prior to me coming on the council or what policies and procedures were in place.
As far as policies or procedures that are in place, there honestly has not been a lot, other than if a business owner was being bothered or harassed, or if unsheltered homeless people were interfering with, operations during public hours. Their course of action would be to call the police and have them trespassed. We have had several incidences recently where there have been, probably received some of the same correspondence that you had, some business owners in town who their property has been vandalized, or their businesses or camps being set up and so forth. during their overnight hours when they're not there. And with that being said, we began researching what other communities, other cities in our state and nation are doing for that, because there are a lot of times where they would not wish to have unsheltered on their property, especially when there is nobody there. Maybe one way during the daytime when they're open, but at night, it's their prerogative, it's their business. They can, do what they would like. So we researched that, and what we have found that many places are doing is they are issuing basically, it's a version of almost like a power of attorney, but it's a trespass order granting the police department, they are signing in advance saying that if there are people on my premises after business hours when they're not supposed to be here, you have my authority to remove them. So, yes, ma'am.
Wouldn't it be better for us to create, with all these empty buildings around town, a place for them to go, a place where they know they can go to and not get in trouble?
That, we can discuss that. Let me finish with this and we'll get right back to that. So anyway, we have created a document for business owners, if they wish to, they can take and they can sign, granting the Jacksonville Police Department authority to remove people who are trespassing on their property after hours or outside of normal business hours. If it is during the day, if it is, or when a business is open, they would still, it's not an automatic, during public hours. If somebody has a right to be there because it's a public facility or it's a business that is open to the public, it would still, the burden would be on the proprietor at that point to call the police if there is a disturbance. This is just during non-business, non-operating hours. So that's a step that has been put in place in light of some of the occurrences that have recently taken place.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions on?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
From the personal point of view, I experienced with the homeless, the unsheltered, was that they have a mental capacity, and you try to put them in a sheltered place. They don't want to follow the rules and regulation when they go to the sheltered place. And when you try to talk to them about it, I'm satisfied where I am. I'm doing all right where I am. From my experiences, we had one at our church the same way. And we had her to move into the high-rise across the street. She didn't want to follow the rules. She'd rather stay on the street than follow the rules. So what are you going to do? You can't follow the rules. We had right here at the community center, where the lady is sleeping in the car right there. I tried to talk to her. She wouldn't speak to me. She's satisfied what she was. She said, "This ain't your business." And she's satisfied what she was. So that's just my experience, what I've had with the unsheltered with them.
Yes, sir.
Piggyback on what Councilmember Maxburn said, the whole key to this is liability. If a building is established, first of all, the city can in no way be responsible for that building, because we would be liable for whatever happens inside that building. In my experiences, being from Houston, and dealing with things in Houston to my family, when you have people unsheltered, again, what Councilmember Ray said, they don't want to follow the rules. I'll give you a good example. There are some that I've stopped, and they say they need food, and we want help, and I know we need a lot of cleaning around here towards these buildings, so I said, well, we can give you a little something to take care of. I don't want work, I just want it. And that came out their mouth. And I think some of the people in the city did the same thing. So the whole key, it goes back to that psyche. Do they want help? Some people want to be panhandlers. Some people don't want to be subject. And then if you get them into a place like what you're saying, a shelter, that shelter, most shelters, those people have to be up out there in the morning, walking around, then they can come back at night, and they do I guess like a raffle or whatever they do it. So you have to really watch the liability. As a matter of fact, we have our expert here dealing with shelters and everything here. And she can tell you it's a big responsibility. And you gotta make sure they wanna follow the rules when they come in. You really don't. Can I ask her a couple?
I actually sponsored her to speak,
Oh.
but before.
She's the expert, let us be.
Yeah, we talk about you.
here, over there?
Either. You're fine, you know.
You all, one thing for sure, that with the individuals that are homeless, most times it is correct, they are not. The chronically homeless are happy being chronically homeless. The issue would be also looking at the substance abuse, mental illness, that dually diagnosed individuals usually are dealing with the homeless. They usually have a concern with going in home. We've had in the past situations where the homeless were so mentally ill that once we get them into a home, we would find them in the backyard in a tent. House is open, furnished, but they would rather be in the back. So one thing for sure, there would need to be some wraparound services to be able to help with all of the issues that the individuals would be having. And we do have support from Little Rock. They will be doing the groundbreaking for the micro home village. So I'm going to ask for some dedicated beds for Jacksonville, for those who do want to be actually housed or sheltered, that they'll be able to go over to Little Rock. And transportation is going to be an issue. So that's something we need to work out as far as getting them there, because it's a first come, first served basis most times. So does anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Hey, Barry, would you share with the other project that's going on? If you're not ready to or don't want to, you don't have to, but I think it'd be good for them to hear what else is in the works. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Jefferson.
Good morning. Good evening. How y'all doing? Hey, just real quick, I totally agree with everything that young lady said, but one program that we're working on that I have the pleasure of serving on the board of the Classic County Community Village Committee, where we're actually looking at it to mimic what Austin have in a community village for the homeless that focus on mental illness and have those wraparound services and stuff like that. So we have a groundbreaker. We got land already. We knocked trees down already. We're looking to build and be able to reach out to all the communities, not just Little Rock, but all the communities, Jacksonville and places like that, that we want to make sure we can service our undersheltered. So that's one thing that we are looking at to do and stuff like that. So I told the mayor that I give him a quarterly update on what we're doing, where we at, what we're going to be partnering with Little Rock to make sure Little Rock is getting the support and stuff like that, because Little Rock is more of a transition, so we can transition them to another shelter, and hopefully they can come over there. So that's our goal in Little Rock, but we'll give you an update on a quarterly basis so you can know what's going on and what we have available. All right. It's going to be out off of Chico, at the end of Chico in Little Rock. We got land out there, I think 138 acres that we got land out there that we're using.
Just like what the young lady said earlier, with transportation being.
That's something that we're looking at. We have a committee set up just to think about transportation, working with churches, working with different organizations, looking at transportation. That's one thing that when I had the privilege to travel down to Austin to visit this community village, that's something that they had. They had transportation, they had people invested and stuff like that. Yes. Yes, sir. Anything else? Thank y'all.
Thank you, Barry. Appreciate it.
Yes, Bishop.
Is that Austin, Texas you're talking about?
Austin tested.
They also are getting assistance from the state.
They also getting assistance from the state, and not only that.
That'd be something we need to get with our representatives to see.
Yeah, we do have, I know Judge Barry Hickus, the county funded it for right now, but we're looking to make it into more of a nonprofit where, again, with that liability, right? And things like that. So we're working with that, working with River City Ministry, if you know what great work they do with the homeless and stuff like that. So they working with them, they own our committee. And so we're trying to touch everyone so everybody can be a part of it, okay? Again, that wraparound service that we're looking at. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mashburn, did you have any questions or comments or anything? Okay.
No, I didn't.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So to answer the question directly, yes, we have talked about this in the past, and obviously there are a lot of opinions when it comes to this, but ultimately there's definitely a need for this community, and I hope that now, especially more than ever after this tornado, that people recognize that this isn't just, you know, somebody intentionally making bad decisions and choosing a life that way. You know, there may be some, but that's not all. And I personally know now a single mother who is homeless because of this tornado, experienced a total loss, and at this point, after her insurance company is paid and they've started rebuilding her house, she's had it looted not once but multiple times. And so this lady is without home for an indefinite amount of time. It's not like insurance completely covers looting. And so it is important for us to recognize what our community is experiencing and support what services we've all spoke about. Because yes, we can support a nonprofit without having all of the liabilities that's been spoken on.
Yeah, in this situation, I have spoken with and talked to several pastors here in town, church leaders, and encouraging them because they are equipped, I mean, honestly, to do it better than we are as a city government. And trying to encourage them to be proactive and working together so it's not just one church that's being responsible, but churches coming together to help minister to these during, you know, this time in their life for those that need it, that are wanting it, because you're all correct in your assessment and thoughts on there are those that don't want the help, that they are intentionally that way. It's publicly living off the grid, I mean, for a lot of them. So, but for those that are in need of service, I'm trying to encourage that with, like I said, with a group of pastors in town to come together and put something into place there. But with what Ms. Spencer said a while ago and what Mr. Jefferson said, those are good options. They're not immediately here. They're, you know, being built, but they're going to provide a wonderful service once they are in place. So, Barry, thank you for serving on that group, and tell everybody that you're working with, you know, thank you very much. And the city of Little Rock, the same thing with the village that they're putting together. I actually received an email on that today with the artist and conceptual, you know, diagram of it, and it's impressive. So I think that's going to be good things that are in store. I've got one item of quick new business for tonight. Previously, council had approved the Criminal Nuisance Abatement Board. We need to tonight select just a temporary chairman for them so that they can begin meeting. And once that is in place to call their meeting and get going, they will then select the draw straws, arm wrestle, whatever they do, for the slots for the service for who's serving the 3-year, the 4-year, the 5-year, and so forth. But I would just like to bring forth a name. If you all would like to hear all the names, I will read them out to you. But I would like to recommend Renee Parker to be the chair of this to get them started. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Can you go through that list?
Yes, glad to. It's Renee Parker, Craig Friedman, Kelly Scarborough, Geraldine Broadway, and Bill Howard.
Very good.
Yes, that's who y'all already approved.
Yes.
They just have to have a chair to get the first meeting going. Go ahead.
It's actually in the state statute that the governing body picks a chairperson before the first meeting takes place. It's not typical commission order, but. Yep.
Okay, motion second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, likewise? Any other new business, comments, questions, announcements? We do have one announcement. Ms. Barber, you want to make it?
Yeah, I have an announcement. It's the Citizen of the Year Award Banquet. We have it every year, but the last 2 years, because of COVID, we didn't have it. We're doing it again this year. It's July the 27th from 6 to 9 at the Jacksonville Community Center. Tickets are $20 a piece, and I have them if you want to buy them. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any others?
I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
When it comes to the citizens that I sponsored
Mhm.
to speak, are they just not going to be allowed the time?
What citizen sponsored to speak as to,
Well, it was in regards to the unsheltered conversation, but,
do you have citizens that are here that,
yes.
or somebody who would
one
like to
of them
speak?
was able to attend today.
Okay, we have not adjourned, so we're still in order now.
Yeah, well,
Um,
I definitely think that it's very important that she at least gets the opportunity to speak. I've personally, talked to her and asked her to be here tonight, especially with her personal experience and testimony, being somebody who has survived homelessness herself and is now the proud mother of a mayor in California and a wonderful daughter that is serving our country in Korea. If you would like to speak, her name is Bettina.
Sure. Hi, my name is Bettina Randall, and I'm from Monterey Bay, California. I have experienced homelessness. I was on the streets of Los Angeles for 6.5 years with 3 babies.
Speak a little closer to the mic where I can.
You want me to go this one? Can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay.
you have a seat if you want to.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'm fine. And yes, I was on the streets with my 3 kids for about 6 years and was homeless. And one of the things that I will say, I know a lot of you say, well, they have mental issues, they have this. Mental issue is the biggest thing that everybody thinks of a homeless person. I am not a mental case. I was very aware of my life, my surroundings, what I wanted, what I didn't want. I was running away from a man who was very abusive to me for many years. So I had nowhere to go but to Skid Row, who saved me from that. I don't have anything bad to say about it. But what I will say is that not everybody has a mental case. They may seem like that. Not every person that's out there that's homeless is hungry. A lot of times they just need help. One of the things that saved me was the resources. I was able to get resources from a Catholic nun who came up and said, I'm going to help you. I took her on that offer. I went to school. I got my education. I got my degree. I just got my master's degree. And about 4 years ago, I bought a home here in Jacksonville, Arkansas, because that's where they moved me to get away from. My kids are now grown. My son is the mayor of Vista Alejo, California. My daughter's in the Air Force, and my other son is a realtor in Florida. So I did raise those kids right, and I did something, but I don't want the stigma to be about it being mental health or that they are having all of these issues. We need everyone here. We are all responsible for each other and our actions, and that means we have to help. And the resources is what they need. Yeah, they may say, I don't need that, but find out what do they need. Really get down to it. That requires a caseworker. It requires a police officer. It requires everybody. It requires all of us to be aware of those issues. I'm glad that I used to work for the state. They had me out on the streets doing Narcan, working at the camps in Little Rock for the homeless. And right now I'm currently volunteering for about 3 years now for PATH, which is Partners Against Trafficking Humans. We see a lot of stuff where these young ladies and men come from different countries over here and have nowhere to go. And so they end up on the street. And then what happens is when they go to places, like you said, they need to come in, they can't get in for help. Most of the time they need help. They're running away from their abuser. So sometimes we definitely have to look at that. I know my time is up, but I wanted to say that if there's anything here that any of you guys need help with, I'm also available. I'm out on the streets a lot, helping the homeless and giving food and doing what I can because I was once there. And Mr. Bolden, you made a comment and you said that the grass is growing. Well, so is the homelessness here in Jacksonville and in Little Rock and Arkansas, period. So we do need everyone here to be a part of getting this particular issue at hand. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Powerful testimony.
So,
Thank you.
that being said, every member sitting up here tonight is directly responsible for what we do and don't support, what services and amenities we do and don't provide here in this city. And fact of the matter is that Little Rock is at capacity, and so is everyone else, minus Hot Springs on a lucky day. And so it is very important for us to recognize the adversities that our community is facing and do something about it, because even our citizens, our last survey that our finance director put out had a question asking what citizens wanted to be done with the budget. And over half said that it was very important for us to provide services for the homeless, and we don't do anything right now. This is so important. It doesn't need to just be a discussion on the impacts that our businesses carry because of our lack of action up here. We need to do more, not only for our city's economy, but our citizens. Our citizens asked this of us. And it's time for us to do something about it. And whether we do or do not do anything, that is an action.
Thank you. Any other comments? Well, what was that?
Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn. Motion second. Second. All right, we're done.